everyone, I'm Jack, and in this drawing tutorial video we're going to see how to draw a man painting a wall. Here's a look at the reference photograph I used. You can get a closer look at this photograph along with the detailed breakdown of the steps I'm about to cover by viewing this article on letsdrawpeople.com. You should see a link in the description below this video. When I drew this, I just used a small sketch pad, but you can use drawing paper of any size you wish. To begin with, I examined the reference photograph and I basically used 3 overlapping boxes to section off 3 main parts of the image. The top box encloses the head. The tall rectangular box under the head is for where the base of the skull and the top of the neck meet, and everything below that. The big square box helps to frame the top of the paint roller and the man's elbow on the bottom. Prior to beginning this drawing, I simply took some basic measurements of the reference photograph with my ruler in order to establish these boxes. This allows us to maintain proper proportions throughout the course of the drawing. Now that we have these boxes, we can begin to draw some basic shapes inside. Start with the box on the top and draw an outline within this box for the head. Look at the reference photograph to shape the head, and again at the reference photo to get an idea of the angle at which the head is turned. We're going to begin adding some guidelines to this head to help place the facial features. Draw a vertical line that will run through the center of the man's face. This vertical line should also follow the curvature of the head. Then draw a horizontal line, again curved across the center. This guideline will help us place the eyes. Draw tiny tick marks along this guideline to place the inner and outer corner of each eye. Next, approximately halfway between the eye guideline and the chin should be a mark for the bottom of the nose. About a third of the way from this point to the chin should be another guideline for the mouth. Now we'll focus on some vertical guidelines under where the eyes will be. A guideline from the center of the eye downward will be for the corner of the mouth. Another guideline from the inner corner of the eye downward will be for the outer edge of the lower part of the nose. Next, draw 2 more horizontal guidelines above the line for the eyes. One will be for the eyebrows and the other for the hairline. Finally, extend the nose guideline all the way across the head. This line in the eye guideline will help to place the ear. Now let's move on to drawing the facial features that accompany these guidelines. Begin with the eyes and draw the outline. Then draw the details of the eyes within the outline of the eye, such as the pupil and the iris and highlights, lines under the eyes, eyelids. After that comes the eyebrows. Use the guideline that's just above the eye and draw the eyebrows on this guideline. Look at the reference photograph to curve the eyebrow appropriately around the eye. After that comes the nose. Look at the reference photograph to judge how far the tip of the nose should protrude from the face and where the tip of the nose should line up with the man's right eye. And take care to carefully draw the nostril and the edge of the bottom of the nose should be lined up with the corner of the man's inner left eye. Let's use the guideline for the mouth that we drew earlier to start drawing the top lip. Let's also use the guideline that extends from the middle of the eye to judge where to draw the outer corner of the mouth. The man's mouth is slightly open, so we want to show some teeth. And we'll want to draw the bottom lip. At this point, we can use a kneaded eraser to begin carefully erasing some of the guidelines that are around the facial features. And then we'll begin to frame the outline of the face. We'll begin to shape the face by drawing the cheeks that we see on the man's right side of his face, as well as the shape of the face around the mouth and the chin, shaping the chin, and putting little details around the mouth as we see them. Now we can start shaping the ear, which should fall between the guidelines for the eyes and the guideline for the bottom of the nose. Use your reference photograph to draw the shapes within the ear. We'll next erase more of the guidelines that we're finished with. This will include basically all of the guidelines of the face, and now we can start drawing the outline for the man's hair. You'll see that earlier when we drew the shape of the head, we left a little space at the top. Now that we draw the outline of the man's hair, we see his hair is sticking up above his head, so the upper tip of the outline of the man's hair is touching the top part of our rectangular box. Start putting details inside the outline of the hair to better indicate the flow and direction of the man's hair, including some of the some light shading in some of the darker areas. Now we can start adding some other details into the face and the eyes in particular, such as shading the pupils and adding some light, subtle indications of the man's eyelashes. Now we're moving on to the part of the drawing that is below the man's head, his neck and his torso, we're going to start framing that. Look at the reference photograph to get an idea of the shape of the neckline, and we'll draw some of the lines on the man's neck that form when his head is turned. Now we're pretty much done with the guideline for the man's face, that box that we drew initially, so we can erase that. We can continue to work on the man's shirt. Look for seams and folds and creases in the man's shirt and indicate those. There's a small curve in the man's back that we'll want to draw along his spine. After completing the folds in the man's shirt, draw the basic outline of the man's arm. The point where the man's hand is holding the handle of the paint roller is lined up right about where his shoulder is. Again, the top of the big square that we drew at the beginning of this drawing is to indicate the top of the paint roller. Draw a rectangular shape for the roller, and then we can curve those edges around and start to form the metal handle that connects to the plastic part of the handle that the man's hand is holding onto. We can add some detail into the roller itself to make it look a little fuzzy, give it a little bit of a light texture. Similarly with the metal part of the handle, we can put a little line to indicate some of the shininess from there. And we can start forming the plastic part of the handle and the shape within it. Use the basic outline of the hand that we drew to start forming the fingers and the thumb and the knuckles. There's not a lot that we can see here because the fingers are bent away from us. But we can put some light indications of the hand, and we'll keep moving down towards the wrist and the forearm. Now that the arm is pretty much complete, we can finish drawing the man's sleeve. And now that we're done with the guidelines, we can start to erase them. Now it's time to start looking at some final details like shading and the paint on the wall. Draw a light outline for the shape of the paint on the wall. And we can start adding some very light horizontal lines to add value to the paint on the wall. Start adding more shading to the man's hair. Find some of the darker spots and put more tones there as needed. Lightly shade other areas that you see on the man's face and neck, notably under his chin. And look for other areas that require shading, such as on the paint handle itself. The man's arm is casting a shadow onto the wall, so we'll darken up that part of the wall next to the man's arm. We'll also put a little shadow on the man's arm, and then we'll start adding some value to the man's shirt. We're going to use a light crosshatch pattern by sketching lines at an angle in one direction, and then we'll sketch more lines at an alternating direction. We can continue another layer of this cross-hatching pattern to bring out a darker value in the man's shirt. Note which parts of the man's shirt need to be darkened even further with shadow and shade that in. Take a final look and add any finishing touches that you see, and that completes this drawing of how to draw a guy painting the wall. Hopefully you found this tutorial useful and you were able to draw it along with me, and hopefully you can also take some of these tips from this video and apply it to other drawings. Find other reference photographs of your liking and apply some of the same strategies to those drawings. For a further breakdown of how I made this drawing, as well as many more drawing tutorials, visit letsdrawpeople.com. Thank you for watching.